Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Nirasha Desaram and you're watching International Trade Part 2. So in the previous video, which was International Trade Part 1, we discussed the theories of international trade and trade protectionism. And in this video, I will be covering the rest of the lesson, which will include terms of trade, globalization and international trade in Sri Lanka. So we'll start with terms of trade. What is terms of trade? Yes, terms of trade, there are two categories, but basically terms of trade is the import purchasing power of exports. Import purchasing power of exports. So this we can identify under commodity terms of trade and income terms of trade. Two concepts. Commodity terms of trade is the number of units that can be imported with a unit of exports. With each unit to export, how many units that you can import. Okay. And the equation is export price index over import price index into 100. Now I have given you an example which will help you to understand how this calculation happens. Assume export price index of a country is 103.5 and import price index is 108.4. Calculate commodity terms of trade, that is 103.5 over 108.4 times 100, which is 95.45. Now there is a condition. You need to know why, when it is favorable and when it is unfavorable. If the terms of trade, that is the commodity terms of trade, is greater than 100%, it is favorable. That is, imagine if it was 105%, that means for every 100 units of exports, you can make 105 units of imports. So it is favorable. But if your commodity terms of trade answer or the balance is something like this, which I got you in the equation, which is 95.45, that is less than 100%, it is unfavorable, because for every 100 units of exports, you can get only 95.45 units of imports. Okay, I hope everyone is clear with that. So understand this very clearly, okay? If it is greater than 100%, it is favorable. Less than 100% is unfavorable. Now we'll see the reasons for the decrease in commodity terms of trade and increase in commodity terms of trade. Yes. When you are studying this, yes, you can by heart these 4 points. But what you can do, what I recommend you to do is, you take this equation and you see, you can keep the numerator constant, increase the denominator, keep the denominator constant, increase the numerator. Okay, you can decrease both but at different rates. You can increase both at different rates. You can increase one, decrease the other one. And see what happens to the outcome, what will happen to the answer. And that is how you know what are the reasons for increase in commodity terms of trade and what are the reasons for decrease in commodity terms of trade. So if I'm just to read you out, you say reasons for decrease in commodity terms of trade: decrease in export price index while increase in import price index. Increase in export price index less than the increase in import price index. Increase in import price index while export price index remain constant. Decrease in export price index while import price index remain constant. So this is just 4. You can come up with a lot if you apply what I asked you to. You see, this is the numerator and the denominator is there now. So you see what will what should happen to these two values to reduce the outcome. Export price index will fall, keeping import price index constant. Yeah, or export price index remains constant, import price index increases. Or both increases, but import price index increases at a higher percentage. Or both falls, but export price index falls at a higher percentage. Or export price index falls, import price index rises. Likewise, you can come up with different reasons. So the opposite of the reasons for decrease will be the reasons for increase. Increase in export price index while decrease in import price index. Increase in the export price index more than the increase in import price index. Or increase in export price index while import price index remain constant, or decrease in import price index while export price index remain constant. Okay. The important thing is the effects. Reasons you will know. reasons, just a matter of remembering the equation, you can make so many reasons. Okay, but important thing is the effects. If the commodity terms of decreasing, commodity terms of trade is decreasing, what does that mean? That means you have to export more to import. Imagine currently for each unit of export, you can make 1.5 units of imports. But decrease in commodity terms of trade means with each unit of export, you can make only 0.75 units of imports. What does that mean? That is the import potential of exports. Import potential or the ability to import of the exports have gone down. Am I clear to you? The import ability, import potential of the exports has gone down. And balance of trade will be unfavorable. Those are obvious things. No? Overall balance of BOP unfavorable and decrease in reserves and assets. And the opposite will be the effects of increase. Increase in import potential of exports, balance of trade favorable, overall balance of BOP, that is balance of payment, being favorable, and increase in reserves and assets. Now we're coming to income terms of trade. What is income terms of trade? It is the total number of imports that can be purchased using the export income. Earlier we spoke about only the number of units, but here we are talking about the value. So here the equation I have given the expanded one. Export price index times export volume index, that is the export value index. Price into volume is value, right? Export price index times export volume index, divide by import price index into 100%. That is how you get your income terms of trade. Example, assume export value index of a country is 200 and import price index is 120. Calculate income terms of trade. 200 over 120 into 100%, which is 166.66%. So here also, just as in commodity terms of trade, greater than 100% is favorable, less than 100% is unfavorable. So given example is favorable. Okay. Now again, the reasons for decrease in income terms of trade, increase in income terms of trade, and the effects. Now the same scenario applies. But I have given you here the reasons are the same which I gave you for commodity terms of trade, because it's the same factors. Okay, it's just that volume index is being added. So reasons for decrease in income terms of trade: decrease in export price index while increase in import price index, increase in export price index less than the increase in import price index, increase in import price index while export price index remain constant, decrease in export price index while import price index remain constant. So you can think about what will happen to the export volume index, or you can take the export value index as a whole and write. Okay, reasons for increase in income terms of trade: increase in export price index while decrease in import price index, increase in export price index more than the increase in import price index, increase in export price index while import price index remain constant, decrease in import price index while export price index remain constant. Okay, and then you come to the effects. Effects of decrease in income terms of trade. Why I rushed through, why I read it so fast, because I have already explained, nothing to explain at all, because it's just a matter of you understanding the equation and imagining and applying different scenarios. Okay, effects: increase in import expenditure. This is, I'm reading the effects of decrease in income terms of trade. Okay, increase in import expenditure, decrease in import potential, decrease in balance of trade, overall balance of trade being unfavorable, balance of payment being unfavorable, decrease in inflationary effects. The opposite will be the inputs. It will be the results of increase in income terms of trade. Exports earnings will increase, import potential will increase, balance of trade will increase, overall balance of payment will be positive or favorable, and inflation effects will increase. Okay, so now this terms of trade was a very small area. Very small area, just with very few calculations, just 1 or 2 calculations, and just in the examination paper they won't be like much focusing on that area because it's just a small area. Anyone will understand that. So just make sure you know the equation so that you can do anything. Whatever you need to do, you need to know the equation. Okay. Even those reasons you can come up with if you know the equation. Okay, so now we are going to talk about globalization. What is globalization? So if you remember in the first video, I tell you globalization, that is the integration of all the countries into a village, into one village. So I have given you a definition here. There is no single definition for globalization. There are a lot of definitions, and this is one of them. The integration process of countries of the world through the various flow of trade, capital, financial, and technology is called economic globalization. So this is globalization. World integrates. Everyone and everything is connected. Then what are the reasons behind globalization? Because globalization wasn't there 100 years back. Now why globalization? Technology, evolving every day. Multinational companies, lower tariffs, improved transport, labor mobility, and capital mobility. So these are the reasons for globalization. Very simple reasons, right? Now we are coming to arguments for, that is benefits, and arguments against, which is the costs of globalization, advantages and disadvantages. These points are very much self-explanatory. I will just read through the points. There's nothing difficult to understand. Okay. So firstly, we look at arguments for globalization. Acquiring of new ideas and experiences, ability to use as a strategy of economic growth, increase in foreign investment, possibility to import raw materials at a low price, increase in foreign employment, improvement of education and knowledge, generation of new employment opportunities, integration of isolated countries of the world with international economic system, expansion of new technology, production of quality goods due to competition. So these are the things, these are the good things that will happen because of globalization. Now, what are the bad things of globalization? The bad side. Let's see, non-distribution of benefits of globalization to all citizens of the world fairly. More benefits are gained by developed countries, easy spread of global economic crisis to other countries of the world, human lives being unsecured, arising of environmental problems, destroying of culture, spread of terrorism, arising of health problems. So these are the benefits, or the good side and the bad side of globalization. Okay. Now we will look at international organizations. Now under this topic, that is globalization, we will have to study international organizations. Then you will have economic integrations, that of course not a very much hard area, and you have trade agreements. You will have to know about few trade agreements. Now we can give you the data, I can give you the information, but I can't teach you about the World Bank. I can't teach you about the functions. I can't, these things that you have to memorize. Because teaching in the sense, there's the question paper, the examination paper won't require you to explain these functions. It's just a matter of you knowing the functions. Okay, so I can just read through. I have given you the information which is required. So it's up to you to study. And I would say, if you are planning to answer question 8, yes, question 8, which is foreign trade and international trade and international finance, which is the next lesson. Okay, I would ask you, just remember these things, because there is a chance of you being tested. Because especially, yes, these things are there directly in the what you call teacher's guide. And also when it comes to this trade agreements, the teacher's guide specifically asks us to give you information regarding those trade agreements. So you better have at least a basic idea. You will not need a very in detail knowledge about what happened in this agreement, in which year, and what are these what are the rules, what are the limitations. Just a basic idea about those trade agreements. And also on this international organizations. So first one is World Bank. This is the United Nations International Financial Institution. The World Bank was established with the main objective of reducing poverty. So one more point I forgot to mention. In all these 3 organizations, I have given you the objectives and the functions. That is very much enough for you. Okay, that is all what you need to know. And functions, of course, yes, there can be a lot of functions which I have given you. Just remember 4 maximum. Yes, when it comes to IMF, yes, you can remember like 6 because they're small. Okay, because there's a possibility of you being tested that for like 2 marks, 4 marks question. 4 marks, possibly the other 2 also. So remember at least 4 from each. Functions of World Bank. World Bank provides various technical services to the member countries, helping the war devastated countries by granting them loans for reconstruction, helping the underdeveloped countries by granting development loans, promoting foreign investments to other organizations by guaranteeing the loans, encouraging the development of industries in underdeveloped countries by introducing the various economic reforms. Then we are coming to IMF. The International Monetary Fund is an organization of 189 countries. You're not required to remember all 189 countries, working to foster global monetary cooperation, secure financial stability, facilitate international trade, promote high employment and sustainable economic growth, and reduce poverty around the world. Now, if you are wondering what these are, and I have not directly stated what they are the objectives. They are the objectives of IMF. Working to foster global monetary cooperation, secure financial stability, facilitate international trade, promote high employment, sustainable economic growth, and reduce poverty around the world. You can take it as 6 or 5. Then functions of IMF. Just remember 4 maximum, enough. Good if you can remember all 6. Functions of IMF: exchange stability, eliminating BOP disequilibrium, determination of par value, stabilize economies, credit facilities, maintaining balance between demand and supply of currencies, maintenance of liquidity, technical assistance, and reducing tariffs. So those are the functions of IMF. And then we are coming to World Trade Organization. World Trade Organization is an international organization which was established with the objectives of promoting multilateral trade and making reformation within the international trade mechanism through the amendments made to the laws of trade and by minimizing barriers of trade. And functions of WTO, that is World Trade Organization. Administration of the implementation of international trade agreements signed by the member countries of the World Trade Organization, provide a forum for negotiations related to promoting of free trade, settlement of trade disputes, review of national policies of member countries, help developing countries to settle problems related to trade policy by implementation of technological aids and training programs, act in a corporate manner with other international economic institutions. So those are the functions. Remember the objectives. In World Trade Organization also there was the objective, okay? And remember 4 functions from each at least. The minimum is 4. Okay. Now we are coming to economic integrations. Now what is the economic integration? We'll see. Okay. Economic integration is an arrangement among nations that typically includes the reduction or elimination of trade barriers and the coordination of monetary and fiscal policies. You eliminate trade barriers and coordinate monetary and fiscal policies. Economic integration aims to reduce cost for both consumer and producers and to increase trade between the countries involved in the agreement. Now you will see when we are going through each economic integration, there is a pattern, there is a development of the stages. We'll see. First one is preferential trade agreement. Definition: an organization formed by the countries to exchange goods and services among member countries at less barriers than the trade barriers among non-member countries. So it is a group of countries got together and they are exchanging goods and services among the members at less trade barriers than the trade barriers that they have with non-member countries. Examples are given, you can go through, just remember at least 2 from each, that will be enough. Okay. And then you have free trade area, a group of countries within which trade barriers between the members are generally abolished, but where barriers apply as they wish when trade takes place among non-member countries. So preferential trade agreements, less barriers between member countries. Free trade area, there's no barriers between member countries And when you are trading with non-member countries, you can apply barriers the way you wish. Okay. And you have the custom union, an organization formed by a group of several countries to maintain trade among member countries without trade barriers and to maintain a common trade policy among member and non-member countries. So they also have free trade of goods and services, and they have a common trade policy among member and non-member countries. Can you see a development? Preferential trade agreement, less barriers among members. Free trade area, no barriers, and with non-member countries, you can apply barriers the way you wish. Custom unions, free trade among member countries, and there is a common trade policy among non-member countries. Along with those two features, okay? Then common market. Integration of countries to facilitate movement of factors of production along with the features of a custom union. What does that mean? So along with the features of a custom, what are the features of the custom union? It has the features of the preferential trade agreement and the free trade area. What are those? You can, preferential trade agreement will keep aside. So you have free trade among the member countries, and you have a common trade policy among member and non-member countries. And in addition to that, you have movement of factors of production, integration of countries to facilitate movement of factors of production. That is in a common market. You come to economic and monetary union. I'm sorry, there is a mistake in this sentence. I'll read it out. Integration of countries to operate with similar monetary and fiscal policies along with the features of a common market. Okay, not economic and monetary union. So in economic and monetary union, you have free trade among member countries, common trade policy and member and non-member countries, facilitation of the movement of factors of production. And in addition to that, you have countries operating with similar monetary and fiscal policies. Okay. And you come to fully economic integration. You see the association formed to exchange goods and services and factors of production among members and non-member countries without any barriers, and to maintain common monetary and fiscal policy with a common political policy. Can you see? Common political policy. So preferential trade agreement, less barriers between members. Free trade area, no barriers, free trade between member countries, and you can apply barriers the way you wish when you are trading with non-member countries. Custom union, free trade among member countries, and a common trade policy among non-member countries. Common market, free trade, common trade policy, and movement of factors of production. Then you come to economic and monetary unions. They have free trade, common trade policy among member and non-member countries, movement of factors of production, and also they have a common monetary and fiscal policy. And you are coming to the final stage, which is the fully economic integration. You have free trade among members as well as non-member countries. Then you have movement of factors of production. Then you have a common monetary and fiscal policy, and also you have a common political policy. Okay, it's very easy to remember. And examples, yes, 2 examples from each will be enough. Now this is the area which I can't teach you, which you have to study by yourself. I will read through everything, but you will have to remember. You will have to remember few points, at least 1 or 2 points you will have to remember, because by any chance in the examination, if you are tested on this, if you are asked to give notes, if you are asked to write notes on this trade agreements, you will have to know. Okay. So firstly, we'll look at bilateral trade agreements, that is between 2 countries. Indo-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. The Indo-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement, which was signed on 28th December 1998 and entered into force with effect from 1st March 2000, provides duty-free concessions to a wide range of products traded between India and Sri Lanka. The objectives are given to promote the harmonious development of the economic relations between India and Sri Lanka through the expansion of trade, to provide fair conditions of competition for trade between India and Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is in the process of negotiating more comprehensive economic cooperation arrangement with India in order to strengthen the present bilateral economic relations. While the present free trade agreement between the 2 countries deals with trade trade in goods, the proposed arrangement will encompass trade in services, investments, and economic cooperation. Then you have Pakistan-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. Pakistan-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement came into force on 12 June 2005. A substantial improvement in trade has been recorded since the agreement came into force. Pakistan implemented its final phasing out commitment in March 2009, and Sri Lanka has now duty-free market access for more than 4,500 products. As a result, Pakistan has become Sri Lanka's second largest trading partner in SAARC region after India. So the largest trading partner of Sri Lanka in the SAARC region is India. Second largest is Pakistan. Proposed comprehensive economic cooperation agreement with Pakistan is presently at a standstill after 2 rounds of negotiations in January 2008 in Colombo and in May 2018 in Islamabad. Now you have regional multilateral. Regional means it's a region, it's few countries. Multilateral means within nations. Okay. South Asia Free Trade Area. The South Asian Free Trade Area is the free trade arrangement of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, that is SAARC. Everyone knows SAARC, no? Which came into force in 2006, succeeding the 1993 SAARC Preferential Trading Agreement. SAFTA, which is South Asian Free Trade Agreement, signatory countries are Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. SAFTA replaces the earlier South Asia Preferential Trade Agreement and mainly eventually led to a full-fledged South Asia Economic Union. You know what are the things that are there in the Economic Union, the features. Asia-Pacific Trade Agreement. Asia-Pacific Trade Agreement is a preferential regional trade agreement formerly known as Bangkok Agreement. The Asia-Pacific Trade Agreement member countries, which is Bangladesh, China, India, Laos, South Korea, and Sri Lanka, which is a vast, cover a total population of about 2.5 billion, which is a vast potential marker to increase the level of intra-regional trade flows among the participating states. Asia-Pacific Trade Agreement aims to promote economic development of its members through the adoption of mutually beneficial trade liberalization measures that contribute to regional trade expansion and economic cooperation. Over time, it refocused from the initial negotiation of tariff concessions on merchandise trade to at present negotiating liberalization in investment, service trade, and trade facilitation. It is also continuously working on improving and modernizing its rules of origin for trade in goods. Now we are coming to Global System of Trade Preferences, GSTP. The Agreement on Global System of Trade Preferences among developing countries was established in 1988 as a framework for the exchange of trade preferences among developing countries in order to promote intra-developing country trade. There are 42 country members of GSTP, including 7 LTCs, which is Bangladesh, Benin, Guinea, Mozambique, Myanmar, Sudan, and Tanzania. The third round of trade negotiation concluded in December 2010, but has not yet become effective. North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, NAFTA, controversial trade pact signed in 1992 that gradually eliminated the most tariff and other trade barriers on products and services passing between the United States, Canada, and Mexico. The pact effectively created a free trade bloc among the 3 largest countries of North America. Through NAFTA, the 3 signatories agreed to remove trade barriers between them by eliminating tariff. North American Free Trade Agreement increases investment opportunities. North American Free Trade Agreement is 2,000 pages with 8 sections and 22 chapters. I know it's quite a lot. And yes, you don't have to remember all these names of the countries and these years. Yes, the years you don't need to remember. Number of pages, the sections, the chapters, you don't have to remember. Just remember what is the objective, why this is there, what is the reason for the creation, why the countries have entered into this, and what is the outcome of this. That is enough. Okay. So you will be, if you are getting a question for like 4 marks, you will be at least asked write about 2 agreements. I don't think they will give you to write about a 1 agreement for 4 marks. So just a matter of remembering 2 points will be enough from each. Yeah, even that's a lot, I understand. Okay. Now we are coming to importance of trade agreements. Improvement of cooperation among countries. You cooperate, no? You combine with other countries. You work together. Expansion of the international market, yes. Decrease in cost of transportation, true. Decrease in the price of domestically produced goods, yes. Improvement of foreign investments, yes. Possibility to purchase new industrialized goods at low price, okay. Increase in employment opportunities, decrease in the price of raw materials, expansion of the opportunities related to export diversification. So there's nothing much to explain. Those are self-explanatory, all the points. Trade agreements, so it's like the same points are being repeated. No, the benefits of globalization, the benefits of international trade. It's like the same points, more like the same. There are few differences, but mostly the same points. These things you don't have to remember. Yes, obviously. One point I would like to remind you, you don't have to remember these benefits and disadvantages when it comes to international trade, when it comes to globalization. Those are central knowledge, common sense. You can think and write. Okay. So just, you don't have to memorize them. You have to by heart them. Just understand. Now we are coming to the last part. This is the last section in this lesson, which is international trade in Sri Lanka. Firstly, we look at export trade. Export trade refers to marketing of goods and services by a particular country to other countries in the world. That is, we are sending goods to other countries. That is what you call export trade. In Sri Lanka, we can classify our exports into 4: agricultural exports, industrial exports, mineral exports, and unclassified exports. And I have given you examples. Agricultural exports include tea, rubber, coconut, and others. Industrial, food, beverages, and tobacco, textiles, garments, petroleum products, rubber products. Mineral exports will include gem and diamonds. And you have unclassified exports. That is, whatever the exports that does not fall under these 3 categories goes under unclassified exports. And here are the figures. These I have taken from the annual report, which I have shared to you as well. So I would advise you, if you are planning to answer this question, this is not a very hard question. This area is not, it's not going to be a very hard area, and answering these questions is not going to be very hard as in the lesson number 8, which was public sector economy, where you have to remember a lot of numbers, and there of course you will have to read that annual report. But for this lesson also, I would say it is preferred if you can read the annual report. It is good if you can read. Okay. So the agricultural exports 2017, this is as a percentage of total I have given. Okay. Agricultural exports 2017 24.4, 2018 21.7, industrial exports 75.2%, and 2018 77.9%. Mineral exports 0.3 in both years, and unclassified 0.1 in both years. And whatever the points I have given to you in here are the points that are exactly there in the annual report. Okay. Earnings from merchandise exports were rebounded strongly in 2017, continued to maintain its growth momentum in 2018. The restoration of the EU GSP Plus facility, conductive external trade policies together with strong institutional support and the flexible exchange rate policy maintained by the central bank underpinned the performance of export earnings. That is, if you are expected to give a comment on the the performance of the export structure in 2018, remember 4 points. Enough. Earnings from industrial exports increased in 2018 mainly with the support of the restoration of the EU GSP Plus facility. Performance of agricultural exports deteriorated in 2018. Agricultural exports, which accounted for about 24% of total exports, declined by 6.8% year on year to US dollars 2,579 million in 2018 due to poor performance in almost all subcategories except seafood. Earnings from mineral exports declined marginally by 0.4% year on year to US dollars 34 million in 2018. Despite an increase in export earnings from ores, slag and ash Earnings from mineral exports decreased during the year due to reduction in earnings from earths and stones and precious metals. You will not need to go that into detail. Just this is just for your reference. You can read that report as well. That you will be able to. Yes. If you go through that, you can. Yes, that's true. That is, if you can go through that report, these are the points that I took out. Okay. If you go through that report, you can come up with points which is easy for you to remember, because the points that is easy for you to remember is not the points that are easy for me to remember, and not the points that are easy for someone else to remember. Okay, so you can go through the annual report and highlight like 4 points will be enough. 4 points from the 2018 performance, which is says the main points. Okay, so that you can remember. Problems faced in export trade: price fluctuations of export crops, decrease in export volume, huge instability in the world market, global economic recession, slow growth in main export markets of Sri Lanka. And solutions: pay attention to improve the relationship between Sri Lanka and the global economy, increase economic promotion and marketing programs in the foreign markets, strengthening of trade agreements productively, production of new export markets and expansion of existing markets and diversification of goods, establishing of institutions that promote industries which focus exports, establishing of a council for export development. So these are the proposed solutions. You can be tested on those. I'm not telling no, but there is a very less opportunity, because this lesson you will be getting from this question, that is question number 8. Yes, you will be getting from international trade and international finance, that is 2 lessons. Okay, that is a huge area. So there is a possibility you being tested, and these things are not that difficult also, so just remember. Okay, and you can think and write as well, just as advantages, disadvantages. Measures taken for the development of export trade in 2018. Again, you can go through. I don't think that I will have to read these things again, because these are again I have taken from the annual report. You can also read the annual report and see whatever the points that are easy for you to remember, you can remember. Okay, just 4 points, remember 4 points. That will be enough. Now we are coming to the import trade. Import trade refers to the purchasing of goods and services by other countries of the world. That is Sri Lanka purchasing from other countries. And from Sri Lanka, you have again 4 categories: consumer goods, intermediate, investment, and unclassified. Consumer goods, food and beverages, other consumer goods. Intermediate goods, fertilizer, crude oil, plastics, wheat, textiles, and garments. Investment, machinery and equipment, transport equipment, and building materials. And whatever doesn't go under these 3 goes under unclassified imports. And same as in the export structure, I have given you the import structure and few points from the annual report. So I will read through the values. Consumer goods 2017 21.5%, 2018 22.4%. Intermediate goods 54.5%, 2017 and 2018 56.2%. Investment goods 2017 23.3%, 2018 21.1%. Unclassified imports 0.7% in 2017 and 0.3% in 2018. The substantial growth in expenditure on merchandise imports, which was experienced in the first half of 2018, it actually decelerated during the second half of the year due to the implementation of macro-prudential measures of the central bank and the government, together with a relatively sharper depreciation of Sri Lankan rupee. Everyone knows that. Expenditure on intermediate goods imports, which accounted for about 56% of total imports, contributed largely to the expansion of imports in import expenditure in 2018. The sharp decline of gold imports following the policy measures, as well as lower imports of rubber and articles thereof and mineral products, contributed to declaration of import expenditure on intermediate goods in 2018. Expenditure on consumer goods, which accounted for 22% of total imports, increased in 2018 due to high expenses that were incurred on non-food consumer goods, despite the decline in expenditure on foods and beverages. So again, 4 points from the national annual report. You can go through, get your own 4 points and study them. Proposals to establish strong inter-foreign markets. Strategic promotion of trade, further rationalization of tariff policy, privatization of export promotion, and entering into bilateral agreements which help export promotion. So if you have already gone through, you will know that Sri Lanka has entered into agreement with Singapore as well. Continuous participation for multilateral approaches. So that is the end of the lesson, foreign trade. It is not that hard lesson as the previous chapter, which was public sector economy. But there are few things that you have to remember. I know the first part, the first half of the lesson, till terms of trade, it sounded very easy. Nothing much to remember, nothing much calculations, just very few 1 or 2 calculations. Nothing much, yes, more like common sense questions. Okay, except for those 2 theories that if you're confused with. Okay, but the rest of the latter part of the question, which had this trade agreements, international organizations, and the last part, which had these values. I know you have to study a little bit, but if you are someone who did not select that public sector economy lesson to answer the second part, I would say this lesson is for you, because in my next video where I will be discussing the answers for the model questions, I will tell you how you are going to select the questions as well. So after that also you will understand that you can give up only 1 question from 1 part. I'll explain you in detail. So yes, so for this video, this is it. So go through the video. If you're not clear with any parts, you can replay and see. Replay and it will, yes, if you are first time maybe you're not very clear, but the second time when you watch it, it will be very much clear to you. So study and good luck. Thank you.